Liam and Emily had been roommates for 6 months, sharing a small but cozy apartment in the heart of the city. They had met through a mutual friend who thought they would make perfect housemates. At first, their relationship was simple, friendly but distant. They respected each other's space, exchanged polite conversations, and went about their daily routines. But as time passed, something changed. Liam started noticing the little things about Emily. The way she bit her lip when she was focused on her writing, the way she hummed softly when she made coffee in the morning, and the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed. He tried to ignore it, convincing himself that she was just his roommate. Nothing more. Emily felt it too. At first, she dismissed the butterflies in her stomach whenever Liam walked around the apartment shirtless after a workout. She told herself it was just admiration, nothing serious. But every time he smiled at her, every time he brushed past her in the kitchen, her heart skipped a beat. Neither of them spoke about it. They didn't dare. One chilly Friday night, the city was hit by a sudden storm. The rain poured down in heavy sheets, the wind howling through the streets. Liam and Emily had planned to spend the evening in their separate rooms, but when the lights in the apartment flickered and went out, everything changed. Emily sighed, setting her laptop aside. "Great, no electricity," she muttered. Liam walked into the living room, holding his phone up like a flashlight. "Looks like we're stuck in the dark for a while," he said with a smirk. Emily rolled her eyes playfully. "Perfect. Just what I needed on a Friday night." Liam chuckled, grabbing a few candles from a drawer. He lit them one by one, their soft golden glow filling the room. The flickering light made the space feel smaller, more intimate. Shadows danced along the walls, and suddenly the apartment didn't feel like just a shared space anymore. It felt like something else. Something dangerous. Emily wrapped herself in a blanket and settled on the couch. Liam sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. The air between them felt heavier than usual, thick with unspoken words. Liam cleared his throat. "So since we have no Wi-Fi and no TV, what should we do?" Emily smirked, taking a sip of her wine. "I don't know. Tell me something interesting." Liam thought for a moment before grinning. "All right, I'll tell you a secret." Emily raised an eyebrow. "A secret?" He nodded. "Yeah, but only if you promise not to judge." Emily leaned in slightly, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "I promise." Liam hesitated, then looked into her eyes. "I almost didn't agree to be your roommate." Emily's mouth fell open. "What? Why?" He chuckled. "Because I thought you were I don't know, too beautiful, too distracting." A silence fell between them. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, her fingers tightening around her wine glass. She hadn't expected that. "Distracting?" she repeated, her voice softer now. Liam exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah. I told myself it would be a bad idea. That I didn't need the complication." He paused, meeting her gaze. "But I'm glad I did." Emily felt heat rush to her cheeks. The candlelight made his face look even more handsome, his features sharp yet gentle. She had spent so many nights wondering if he felt the same pull, the same tension, and now here they were. She swallowed hard, her lips parting slightly. I almost didn't move in either," she admitted. Liam frowned slightly. "Why not?" Emily took a deep breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Because I was afraid I'd feel something for you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and unbreakable. Liam stared at her, his expression unreadable. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, but inside the storm between them was stronger. Liam's fingers brushed against hers just barely, but it was enough to send a spark up her arm. The tension between them was undeniable now, a force neither of them could fight. Emily looked at him, her breath uneven. "Liam," she whispered. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, everything changed. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside, something far more powerful was beginning. The storm outside grew louder, rain hammering against the windows as if demanding to be heard. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, wrapping the apartment in a warm, golden glow. But inside, the world had shrunk to just Liam and Emily, their hearts racing as they sat close on the couch, the thick blanket draped over both of them. Neither of them spoke for a moment, the weight of their confessions hanging between them. Emily's fingers gripped the stem of her wine glass, her mind replaying the words she had just spoken. Because I was afraid I'd feel something for you. Liam, sitting beside her, exhaled slowly. His body was tense, his hands resting on his thighs as if he was afraid to move, afraid of what might happen if he did. He turned his head slightly, his deep brown eyes locking onto hers. "You were afraid?" he asked softly. Emily swallowed, forcing herself to hold his gaze. "Yes," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought if I lived with you, I'd start seeing you differently, and I did." Liam's lips parted slightly, his jaw tightening. "Emily," he started, but then hesitated, as if searching for the right words. Instead of speaking, he reached for his wine glass and took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. A flash of lightning illuminated the room for a brief second, followed by the deep rumble of thunder. Emily shivered, not just from the storm, but from the electricity crackling between them. Liam noticed. Without thinking, he reached for her hand, his fingers lightly brushing against hers. The small touch sent a shockwave through Emily's body, her breath catching in her throat. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" Liam murmured, his thumb tracing soft circles on the back of her hand. Emily nodded, her heart pounding. "I think it already has." A silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was thick, filled with something unspoken yet undeniable. The tension that had been building for months had finally surfaced, and there was no way to push it back down. Liam sighed and leaned back slightly, running a hand through his dark hair. "You know, I tried so hard to ignore it," he admitted. "I told myself over and over that we were just roommates, that I couldn't let myself think about you like that." Emily's lips curved into a small smile. "And did it work?" Liam chuckled, shaking his head. "Not even for a second." Emily's heart fluttered at his words. She knew she should be cautious. This was dangerous territory. If they crossed this line, there was no going back. But in that moment, staring into Liam's dark, smoldering eyes, she didn't care. She shifted slightly closer, their legs brushing beneath the blanket. "Then why did we wait this long?" she asked softly. Liam inhaled sharply, his gaze dropping to her lips for just a second before returning to her eyes. "Because I didn't want to ruin what we had," he admitted. "I didn't want to lose you." Emily's heart ached at the honesty in his voice. She reached up, gently touching his face, her fingers grazing his jawline. "You're not going to lose me, Liam," she whispered. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, leaning into her touch. When he opened them again, they were filled with something deep, something raw. He reached up, his hand covering hers, pressing it against his cheek. Another roll of thunder rumbled in the distance, but neither of them noticed any more. The air between them was thick with heat, with anticipation. Liam exhaled shakily. "Emily, if I kiss you right now, I won't be able to stop." Her breath hitched. Her fingers tightened against his skin, her heart slamming against her ribcage. "Then don't stop," she whispered. That was all the permission Liam needed. In one smooth motion, he closed the space between them, capturing her lips with his. The kiss was slow at first, hesitant, two people testing the boundaries of something fragile, something new. But the moment their bodies pressed together, something inside them both snapped. Liam's hands found her waist, pulling her onto his lap as he deepened the kiss. Emily gasped against his mouth, her fingers tangling in his hair. She could feel the heat radiating off him, the way his body tensed beneath her touch. Their lips moved in perfect rhythm, as if they had been waiting for this moment forever. The soft flicker of candlelight cast them in a golden glow, the storm outside forgotten. Liam broke the kiss for just a second, his forehead resting against hers as he caught his breath. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that," he murmured, his voice husky. Emily smiled, brushing her thumb over his lips. "I think I do." Liam let out a low chuckle before pulling her back in, kissing her deeper, hungrier this time. Emily melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, pressing herself closer. The storm outside raged on, but inside the apartment, Emily and Liam had created a storm of their own, one fueled by months of hidden glances, stolen moments, and unspoken desires that could no longer be ignored. Emily's breath came in soft, uneven gasps as she clung to Liam, her hands tangled in his dark hair. His lips moved hungrily against hers, his hands gripping her waist, pulling her closer as if he never wanted to let go. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows around the room, illuminating the way their bodies pressed together, the way their hearts pounded in unison. Everything about this moment felt electric, as if they had been waiting for this night all along. Liam pulled back slightly, his breathing heavy as he rested his forehead against hers. His fingers traced slow, lazy circles against her lower back, sending shivers up her spine. "Emily," he murmured, his voice low and filled with something deeper than just desire. She looked into his eyes, seeing the same longing she felt reflected back at her. "Liam," she whispered, cupping his face in her hands. "Don't stop." A slow smile spread across his lips before he kissed her again, softer this time, savoring the taste of her. His hands moved up her back, memorizing every curve, every inch of her that he had only dreamed of touching before. Emily's heart raced as she let herself get lost in him, her body pressing against his with an urgency she had never felt before. She had spent so long holding back, convincing herself that this could never happen, but now, with Liam's hands exploring her, his lips setting fire to her skin, she couldn't hold back anymore. The air around them was thick with heat, the tension between them growing stronger with every second. Liam lifted her effortlessly, guiding her back onto the couch. He hovered over her, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face as he gazed down at her. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had never felt more seen, more wanted than she did in that moment. Her fingers traced the sharp angles of his jaw, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath her touch. "I want this," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I want you." Liam let out a low groan, as if he had been waiting for those words forever. He captured her lips again, deepening the kiss as his hands roamed her body, learning every inch of her. Their kisses grew more desperate, their touches more urgent. Every brush of their skin sent sparks flying between them, their bodies moving together in perfect harmony. Emily arched beneath him, her fingers gripping his shoulders as he pressed kisses down her neck, along her collarbone, leaving a trail of fire in his wake. She had never wanted anything more in her life, never felt this overwhelming need that consumed her whole. Liam pulled away for a moment, his dark eyes searching hers. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice thick with restraint. Emily smiled, running her fingers down his chest. "I've never been more sure of anything," she whispered. That was all Liam needed to hear. He kissed her again, deeper this time, as they surrendered completely to the fire between them. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside, another kind of storm was unfolding, one they never wanted to end. The storm outside had not calmed, but inside the apartment, the fire between Liam and Emily had only grown stronger. The rain hammered against the windows, the wind howled through the city, but they were lost in their own world, one where nothing else mattered except the way their bodies fit together, the way their hearts pounded in sync. Liam's hands moved slowly, tracing every inch of Emily as if he were memorizing her. His touch was both gentle and possessive, as though he couldn't believe she was real. Emily gasped softly, tilting her head back as his lips brushed against her neck, leaving a trail of warmth in their wake. "I've wanted this for so long," Liam murmured against her skin, his breath sending shivers down her spine. Emily's fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer. "Me too," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. They had crossed the line they had avoided for months, and there was no turning back now. But neither of them wanted to. Liam pulled back slightly, resting his forehead against hers. His hands cupped her face, his dark eyes searching hers for any hesitation. "Tell me this isn't just the storm," he said softly. "Tell me this is real." Emily's heart clenched at the vulnerability in his voice. She reached up, brushing her fingers over his jawline. "This is real," she assured him. "It's always been real." A slow, relieved smile spread across Liam's lips before he kissed her again, slowly, deeply, as if sealing her words into his soul. The night stretched on, filled with whispered confessions and stolen touches. They explored each other with a hunger that had been denied for too long, losing themselves in the moment. But eventually exhaustion set in, and they found themselves tangled in the sheets, their bodies pressed together beneath the soft glow of candlelight. Emily rested her head against Liam's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. His arms wrapped around her, holding her close as if afraid she might slip away. A comfortable silence settled between them, the only sound the distant rumble of thunder outside. Emily traced lazy circles on Liam's skin, her mind spinning with the reality of what had just happened. "We really did this," she murmured, breaking the silence. Liam chuckled softly, pressing a kiss to her hair. "Yeah," he whispered. "We really did." Emily bit her lip, her heart pounding for a different reason now. What did this mean for them? Were they still just roommates? Could they go back to how things were before? As if sensing her thoughts, Liam tightened his hold on her. "Are you thinking too much?" he asked teasingly. Emily sighed, tilting her head up to meet his gaze. "Maybe." Liam studied her for a moment before brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I don't want this to be a mistake," he said softly. Emily's chest tightened. "Neither do I." He hesitated, then cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing against her skin. "Then let's not treat it like one." Emily blinked up at him, her heart swelling at his words. "You mean?" "I mean I don't want this to be just one night," Liam said firmly. "I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I don't want to go back to just being roommates." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. "You don't?" Liam chuckled, shaking his head. "No, Emily. I want more. I want you." Tears pricked at her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming happiness that filled her. She had spent so long denying her feelings, afraid of what would happen if she admitted them. But now, lying in Liam's arms, she realized she had never felt more certain of anything in her life. She reached up, pulling him down for another kiss, one filled with promise, with hope. Liam smiled against her lips. "So does this mean I can officially call you mine?" he teased. Emily laughed softly, her fingers tracing the outline of his face. "I think you always have." Liam's arms tightened around her, and as the storm outside finally began to settle, so did the storm inside their hearts. Because this wasn't just one night. It was the beginning of something real. The first rays of morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the apartment. The storm had passed, leaving behind a quiet stillness that wrapped around the space like a warm embrace. But inside the bedroom, another kind of warmth lingered, the kind that came from two hearts finally surrendering to what had always been there. Emily stirred, her body shifting against the soft sheets. At first she was disoriented, her mind caught between sleep and wakefulness. But then she felt it, the steady rise and fall of Liam's chest beneath her cheek, the firm warmth of his arm draped around her waist. Her heart fluttered. Slowly, she lifted her head, her eyes landing on Liam's face. His dark hair was tousled, his lips slightly parted in sleep, his features relaxed in a way she had never seen before. He looked peaceful, content. Her fingers twitched with the urge to trace the curve of his jaw, to memorize every inch of him. But she hesitated, suddenly hit with the reality of what had happened between them. They had crossed the line, and there was no going back. Emily swallowed, a mix of emotions swirling in her chest. What if this changed everything? What if last night had been a mistake to him? As if sensing her thoughts, Liam stirred, his grip on her tightening before his eyes slowly fluttered open. For a moment he just stared at her, his gaze still hazy with sleep. Then a slow, lazy smile spread across his lips. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice husky. Emily's heart clenched. How could he make two simple words sound so intimate? She bit her lip, suddenly shy. "Morning," she whispered. Liam shifted, propping himself up on one elbow. His fingers brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering. "You're thinking too much again," he observed, amusement dancing in his eyes. Emily let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "I can't help it." Liam sighed, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her bare shoulder. "Tell me what's on your mind." She hesitated before voicing the question that had been nagging at her. "Does this change things between us?" Liam's expression softened. He cupped her face, his eyes locking onto hers with a tenderness that made her chest tighten. "I hope so," he admitted, "because I don't want to pretend last night didn't happen. I don't want to pretend I don't feel something for you, Emily." Her breath caught. You don't regret it." Liam frowned slightly, as if the idea itself was absurd. Regret it? He let out a small laugh, shaking his head. Emily, I've wanted you for longer than I care to admit. Last night wasn't a mistake, it was inevitable. Emily felt her pulse quicken. I don't want to lose what we have. Liam's fingers tilted her chin up, his expression serious. We're not losing anything, he assured her. If anything, I think we just found something we should have had all along. Emily's lips parted, her heart swelling at his words. She had spent so long fearing this moment, convinced that giving in to her feelings would ruin everything, but looking into Liam's eyes, she realized something. She had been wrong. This wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning. Liam leaned in, pressing a soft, lingering kiss to her lips. Let's not overthink it, he murmured against her mouth. Let's just be us. Emily exhaled, finally allowing herself to let go of the doubts, the what-ifs. She smiled against his lips, her fingers curling into his hair. Okay, she whispered. Liam grinned, rolling onto his back and pulling her against his chest. Good, he said playfully, because I don't think I'm letting you out of this bed anytime soon. Emily laughed, the sound light and free. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. Because with Liam, she knew, whatever happened, they would face it together. The morning after their passionate night together, Emily and Liam had stayed in bed for hours, wrapped up in each other. Every touch, every kiss felt like a dream, one she never wanted to wake up from. But as the sun climbed higher in the sky, reality began to creep in. Emily sat at the kitchen counter, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. Her body still tingled from Liam's touch, but her mind was spinning. They had crossed the line from roommates to something much more intimate. What did that mean for them now? Liam walked in, his hair messy from sleep, wearing nothing but sweatpants. He looked effortlessly handsome, and the sight of him sent a fresh wave of warmth through her. He grinned as he came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing a kiss to her neck. Morning again, he murmured. Emily smiled, leaning into him. Morning. Liam rested his chin on her shoulder. Are you okay? She hesitated. Yeah. I just keep thinking about how we're supposed to act now. Liam turned her around gently so she was facing him. How do you want to act? Emily bit her lip. I don't know. I mean, are we still just roommates? Or are we more? Liam studied her for a moment before a smirk tugged at his lips. I don't think just roommates spend all night doing what we did. She rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the smile from forming. Liam, I'm serious. He sighed, taking her hands in his. Emily, I don't want to hide what we have. I don't want to pretend last night was some accident. It wasn't. It was us finally stopping all the pretending. Her heart swelled at his words, but a flicker of uncertainty still lingered. But what if things change? What if something goes wrong? Liam cupped her face, his thumb brushing over her cheek. Then we deal with it. Together. Emily stared into his eyes, searching for any hint of hesitation, but there was none. Only certainty, only him. She let out a deep breath and nodded. Okay. Liam grinned. Good, because I was planning on kissing you again either way. She laughed, and before she could respond, his lips were on hers, stealing her breath. Just as the kiss deepened, a knock at the door made them jump apart. Emily's eyes widened. Oh no. Liam frowned. What? The group brunch, she groaned. I completely forgot. They had promised to meet their friends for brunch that morning, and now they had to face them, together. Liam ran a hand through his hair, looking amused. Guess we better get ready to act normal. Emily gave him a look. We are not normal anymore, Liam. He smirked. I know. And I love it. An hour later, they arrived at the cafe where their friends were already seated. Emily felt a strange mix of excitement and nerves. She and Liam had always been close, but now, with the way he sat just a little closer, the way his hand brushed hers under the table, everything felt different. Their friend Mia raised an eyebrow as she looked between them. Something's different with you too. Emily froze. What? No. Nothing's different. Liam, on the other hand, smirked. Really? Nothing at all. Emily shot him a warning glance, but he only chuckled. Mia narrowed her eyes suspiciously, but before she could question them further, their friend Jake groaned. Okay, but can we please order before you two start whatever weird mind game is happening? Emily relaxed slightly, But she knew this was only the beginning. The more time they spent together, the harder it would be to keep their new relationship a secret. And maybe she realized she didn't want to keep it a secret. Because what she had with Liam, it was real. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of letting the world know. Emily had never been good at keeping secrets, especially not when her heart was practically bursting with happiness. Sitting across from Liam at the cafe, surrounded by their friends, she felt the weight of the change between them. The night they had spent together wasn't just a moment of passion, it was the beginning of something real. And she knew it was only a matter of time before everyone else saw it too. Liam, however, seemed to enjoy the secrecy. Every time their hands brushed under the table, he'd give her a teasing smirk. Every time she spoke, his gaze lingered on her lips just a little too long. It was subtle, but Emily could feel the shift. And so could Mia. After brunch, as soon as the group split up, Mia pulled Emily aside. "Okay, spill." Emily blinked. "Spill what?" Mia crossed her arms. "Don't play dumb. You and Liam. You're acting weird." Emily hesitated, her pulse quickening. She hadn't expected to be caught so quickly. "We're not acting weird," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Mia scoffed. "Oh please. I know you, Em. You get this look when you're trying to hide something. And Liam? He was looking at you like he wanted to eat you for dessert." Emily's face turned bright red. "Oh my God," Mia gasped. "You did something. You slept with him, didn't you?" Emily glanced around nervously before sighing in defeat. "Fine. Yes. We spent the night together." Mia squealed, grabbing Emily's hands. "I knew it. Finally. Oh my God, tell me everything. When did this happen? Was it just a one-time thing? What does this mean?" Emily laughed, her nervousness fading slightly. "It happened during the storm. And no, it's not just a one-time thing. We decided we don't want to pretend anymore." Maya's face softened. That's amazing. You two were always meant to be more than just roommates." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. "You really think so?" "Absolutely." Just then, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "Liam, you're telling Mia everything, aren't you?" Emily smirked and typed back. "Emily, maybe." A second later, another text popped up. "Liam. Good, because I don't want to hide it anymore." Emily's breath caught. She looked up at Mia, a huge smile spreading across her lips. "I think I'm falling for him." Mia grinned. "Emily, I think you already fell." That night, Emily returned to the apartment, her heart pounding with anticipation. She opened the door to find Liam waiting for her on the couch, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Figured we should celebrate," he said with a smirk. She raised an eyebrow. "Celebrate what?" Liam stood up, walking toward her. "Us." Emily felt her breath hitch as he wrapped his arms around her waist. "So we're really doing this," she whispered. Liam smiled. "Yeah, we are." She exhaled, her fingers tracing his jawline. "No more hiding." He shook his head. "No more hiding." Emily pulled him in for a kiss, slow and deep, sealing the promise between them. They had started as roommates. They had become best friends. And now there was something much more. As they melted into each other once again, Emily knew this was just the beginning of their love story, and she couldn't wait to see where it led.